Hello again, witches, seekers, and friends, and welcome to the Fat Feminist Witch podcast, the show where we do a little ranting, raving, and wand waving. I'm your host, Paige Vanderbeck, and together we're going to explore magic and spirituality, social justice, the psychic realm, and truly modern witchcraft. Hello again, my witchy friends, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Fat Feminist Witch, the last actually for 2024. Today's the Winter Solstice, a time of year centered around change, tradition, hope, rebirth, and also the balance between darkness and light. No matter what holiday you celebrate this time of year, or if you celebrate a holiday this time of year at all, we are all going through a natural rite of passage together. We're passing through this liminal space between two seasons at both the beginning and the end of the year. The winter solstice is the time of year with the longest night, meaning we have fewer daylight hours today than any other day throughout the year. In the summer, we have the reverse. Unless you're in the southern hemisphere, in which case, a very happy summer solstice to you. I live in the north. I live in Canada. So I tend to have a rather classic or stereotypical winter solstice. There's usually snow. I might get a treat and see winter animals like rabbits or cardinals. And if the sun comes out at all, I am plunged into a deep darkness so early in the day that I can't even bring myself to call it nighttime. It's not an easy season to live through, but it is very special in its own way. I can't hate it. I was recently invited onto That Witch Life podcast, and I talked about this. But winter is like Canada's brand. Canada is a winter-themed country and culture. Even though most of us experience all of the seasons, we tend to come together right now. So even though I'm hibernating alone in my house, scared to leave, I feel a bit more connected to both the people and the land here when winter blows in. Like the solstice, winter is a universal experience for us. We are all going through it. We are all finding ways to bring light into these dark times, be that with Christmas lights, menorahs and candles, or holidays, festivals, and reasons to get outside, like ice skating, which I love. I was actually a tiny little figure skater once upon a time. It's adorable. I don't have the pleasure of seeing things like the northern lights or Arctic animals like the foxes and hares, polar bears. If I was near the water, I could see belugas and narwhals, or even extra special animals like an all-white moose or deer that are terrifying in their beauty. They don't come this far south. But those, to me, are like the heart and soul of winter here in the north. And so I bring those elements inside when I decorate my Christmas tree, which is my favorite part of the season. I have lights that are the color of the auroras, green and pink and purple and blue. I have decorations of snowflakes and icicles that bounce and reflect the light all over the place, and some of those little Arctic animals dancing along the branches. I guess I'm not really a red, white, and green kind of girl. I love to take some time, especially on the winter solstice, to shut off my overhead lights and imagine what it must be like to sit next to a frozen lake under the aurora borealis, fully immersed in a side of nature that seems so dreamy to me. Any other time it seems scary, but in the winter, I feel much less afraid of it. People live so happily up in the north of this country, and if they can not only survive, but thrive in the cold, and with a day-to-night ratio that is difficult for me to wrap my mind around, it must be worth it. It must have something special. It's gotta be magical. On the winter solstice, we celebrate the returning of the light in the days to come. It doesn't necessarily feel like it, but days are technically getting longer after this point. But in addition to looking forward to the light, we honor the darkness and the beauty and the magic that can be found there. This summer, when for the very first time that I can ever remember, the aurora borealis was actually visible all the way down here at Canada's southernmost point where I live. It was only visible when the sun's light was snuffed out. If I hadn't been out in the darkness, I never would have seen it. I never would have experienced that. My first episode of this year was called Dark Night of the Soul. And it was all about the dark as a time and a place of spiritual growth, as a rite of passage. Today seems like a really great time for me to share what I've learned this year while wading through this liminal space. My main lesson in 2024 was about connection and sometimes disconnection. I have been feeling so cut off, so disconnected this year from pretty much everything. Other people, the planet, my intuition, my body, myself. It took me quite some time to really understand where this feeling came from, and I'm still figuring out how to bridge the gap, because that opened up a whole other can of worms. One of the reasons I'm struggling to connect is because of how much of my life I have chosen to live online. I've been using the internet to connect with the world for so long, even before I started the podcast. But in 2020, when lockdowns began, I started to get this kind of nagging feeling in my gut about the way we were all using the internet. It was different. No one was all that happy, but no one was happy in general, right? And I don't know if it's because we were all forced into it or because how we all live has changed. But there's definitely something different about living a life online, and there's definitely something different in what I am getting from it. I noticed a change in my spiritual practice, and I don't think I'm alone. When I log on and I look at what people share online and how much of it they share online, I wonder if it changes the actual intention of our spells and rituals. If you're casting a spell and you lay it all out on your altar in a way that will look great in a photo, are you splitting your energy maybe? You might be focused on the intention you chose originally, but you're also redirecting some of that energy to the process of sharing it. You could also make the same mistake I know I have quite a bit in the last few years, which is to completely accidentally divert all your energy to that secret agenda of likes and follows. Or, if I don't want to sound so shallow, I'm just gonna, or, because you're trying to paint a picture of who you are, what kind of person or witch that you are. It feels very good to be seen in the way we want to be seen, to be able to curate other people's perception of us. It gives us a feeling of control and of power. We also get high on the instant gratification. Every like or comment or repost floods your brain with dopamine and other happy chemicals. It's a drug. It's intoxicating. But witchcraft without that social component doesn't really provide instant gratification. It's all about long-term growth and hopefully satisfaction. Most magic works slowly and is subtle. You might get this really lovely feeling of accomplishment or giddiness right after you perform a ritual, but that feeling tends to be short-lived because it's a moment, rather than an entire internet full of moments potentially in every time zone across the planet if your post goes viral. But that viral energy is concentrated on something specific, and it might not be the same thing you wanted your spell to be for. So that energy might not be calling in new love or prosperity or warding your home or whatever it is. It might not be reaching out to ancestors or to the divine. It might not even be reaching out to real people. They could just be robots to artificial intelligence. But our reactions and our feelings are just as real in response to something we experience online as they are offline. Our feelings are real, even if what we're seeing isn't. So some very shallow experiences or relationships can cause very deep feelings, including painful ones. It's a balancing act, where we are teetering on a border between what is real and not real. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm balancing it very well. None of this is to make you feel bad or guilty or stupid. And I certainly could not get here on my witch podcast and say that you're not a real witch if you share any witchcraft online. This is just a lesson that I've been learning bits and pieces of over the last year. It's just been adding up. I made a joke recently. It was something like, if I don't post my spell online, did I even cast it? That's a silly thing, but there is a very real emotion behind that. And that is, if no one sees me doing witchcraft, am I even a witch? And that's a much more complicated question. It's also a bummer. Like, what is this, Schrodinger's witchcraft? I'm not feeling it. The other day I was thinking about this, and my mind went to a memory of me about to blow out a candle on my birthday cake, right, and make a wish. And I was always told not to speak my wish out loud or to share it with anybody else, because then it wouldn't come true. But no one ever explained why that is. When I started studying witchcraft in the 90s, I saw a similar sentiment when it came to spell work, rituals, and your Book of Shadows or grimoire. Also, actually, personal altars were usually considered pretty private. There was this expression I saw all the time, keeping your magic sub rosa, or under the rose. Ancient expression with roots in where else? Greece, Rome, Egypt, Hellenistic period, Aphrodite was said to give her son Eros, or Cupid, a special rose from her garden. And in turn, he delivered it to the god of silence, so that Aphrodite's romantic indiscretions would remain a secret, from both her husband and her boyfriend. Bless her. Roses have been a symbol of secrecy and confidentiality since then. Lots of secret societies have used roses in their insignia, and roses were even, painted or hung or carved on the ceilings of places where confidential meetings were taking place. In some Catholic churches, the rose would be carved into the confessional booth to cast this kind of air of silence around the place. In the Rider-Waite-Smith version of the tarot, you can see a meeting taking place sub rosa on the Three of Pentacles. You see three people standing there, a stonemason, a monk, and an architect inside a cathedral that's being built. And above them is an archway where three pentacles have been carved. The message of the card is cooperation, of working together towards a final goal, but also of being willing to step aside when you don't have the expertise needed, of asking for help. The monk probably can't do the same thing on this job as the architect, and that's okay. That's why everybody's different, right? But if you look closely, right under the pentacles, a small rose is also carved there. This tells you that it may be good to keep this project under wraps for now. It can even caution you against asking everyone's opinion on your project, especially people who don't have the knowledge and skills to contribute in a meaningful way. This could jeopardize the goal of the project or your ability to work with your team. The mason, monk, and architect don't really need the input of, say, a baker or a veterinarian in constructing a cathedral. But those people probably have ideas and opinions. They might even feel very strongly about them. But factoring them into the plan, it could waste time, or it could destroy the cathedral. It might go well, but odds are it's not useful. It's not usable. Sharing your ideas with others and being able to ask other people for input or help, even people who come from a very, very different place than you do, is a lovely thing. It's a gift. But it's important to know why you're asking, why you want to hear from people, What do you need from them? And when it comes to your magic, I mean, why do you want a random person from random place who's never cast a spell in their life to potentially weigh in on your ritual? If you're opening it up to the public, anyone can join in. And while in your head you might know that what they say doesn't really need to affect anything, your feelings might react anyways. Sending, whatever you were posting to a select group of people with the knowledge and experience to provide you with something like support or even constructive criticism is much different than just blasting it out to the whole world. And what if someone who does practice witchcraft sees it? If you put your spell out there, could they block it? Could they use it to, bounce some bad energy back at you? Could you end up worse off than you were before? Is it worth taking that risk? It's about discernment. So if it's your birthday and you are wishing for, a shiny new bike, but you don't have the money or the ability to get yourself a bike, that doesn't have a lot of foundation here in reality, so it might not come true. You need real world action to back up your intention, right? So sharing that you want a new bike with your partner or your parents or Santa Claus, if you are a Christmas baby, might actually help you get what you want. Telling the dog about the bike you want, well, adorable, probably won't help. So, going forward, when we think, I'd love to share this spell online, or I'd love to cast a spell that I can share online, let's all just stop for a second and ask ourselves why. Who do we want to share it with? What are we hoping for in response? Do we want help, validation, to inspire other people? Maybe we just want to share something that made us happy, something we like. Then you get to decide if sharing it online, publicly, or privately with, people that you know, will get you something that you want. Sharing it may be that real world action that supports your intention, but it also might not be helpful. And at worst, it could come back and bite you. I love sharing the witchy things I do or make with other witches. I really do. It's like I'm like a little kid who drew a stick figure picture and I want you to hang it up on the fridge, But sharing personal things to a wider audience with the understanding that they can engage if they feel like, and, I don't have to, I don't really have to try. This is also something. It's a coping strategy when you have anxiety because it gives you an out, a way to avoid real intimacy, which can be uncomfortable. If you have a coven or close friends who are witches, or, just a safe person that you can share these personal things with, that's fabulous. Not everyone has it. And that's what has always been so wonderful about the internet and social media. I don't personally have a big in-person local witch community to share things with, or even to ask for advice, I don't have anyone who wants to put my stick figure picture on the fridge, and that can be kind of lonely. But loneliness is, again, a balm against potential pain. So in sharing publicly, it's both a way to connect and to remain disconnected. And my social anxiety just flops between wanting both those things constantly. In my last episode at Halloween, I talked about sacrifice and about having a transactional relationship with deities and spirits, and how that can be a very limited assessment of their role in your spiritual practice. You're not buying something, you're forming a relationship. So if you really want to talk to someone about your practice, you don't have to go any further than your own sacred space. You can light a candle or a stick of incense on your altar. You can just sit there. You can talk. You can write. You can sing a song or recite a poem. You can make a piece of art. And you can believe that you are heard and that you are seen. If you love photography, you can still take pictures of your altar or of your spells. You can even take pictures of your cute witchy outfits and you can print them out. Make a scrapbook, a physical scrapbook. Do you remember physical scrapbooks? I love them. You can keep that on your altar. You can only use the book to communicate with the divine or with your own inner self. It is a type of grimoire all on its own. Art is art whether any other living human being sees it or not. It's still worth making. You can even go a little bit further and never make a physical record or copy of these things. You can speak a prayer and no other living soul is around to hear it, and it was still spoken. It was still felt. And I like to believe that the prayer was heard. I mean, you can also share things with other humans without laying it all out and being very explicit about its meaning and intention. You can write a song and perform it, put it on an album, make money off of it, and never tell a single person what it's really about. That's also okay. The point is that you don't have to share, and you can share. It's totally up to you, but the reason you want to share is the thing to pay attention to. Magic doesn't have to be Instagram ready to be magic. It just has to be authentic. You have to feel it. You have to pour yourself into it. So are you pouring yourself into a ritual? Or are you pouring yourself into sharing the ritual online? Sounds like a simple question, but I suspect that this question is getting harder and harder for us to answer every year. We also have to really pay attention to what we take from online to support our practice. There's always been bad information out there, and there always will be. And while the conversation about things like AI and ChatGPT writing books seems kind of new, there have always been books that don't seem to have been written by a human being at all for a long time. Sometimes it's obvious. If one author is writing a book on every single type of magic from all over the world and releasing 10 books a year, I think it's a pretty safe bet to assume that's not totally legit. But regular people can also write books full of fluff, right? Again, discernment. And then when you get online, you see real humans posting actual photographs. But that doesn't mean that what they're showing you is real in the fullest sense of the word. The picture may be real, but the situation depicted might not be. The things we see online all the time do have real power to influence how we think and feel and behave. I like to say that we're just getting inspired by things, but who am I kidding? The internet is brainwashing me for sure. I have become a little bit of a shopaholic. Got to get it under control. I want to buy so many things to use to do projects. I love crafty and art trends and even more embarrassing cleaning trends. I love cleaning and I hate so much that I love it. I am so grateful that I am able to convince myself that paying $8 million for a scrub daddy instead of a cheap sponge is a bad call. Because if I couldn't, I would be living in a box made of scrub daddies right now. I don't buy from Shein anymore. This is a great example. I don't buy from Shein anymore. I used to because it was incredibly cheap. They had cute things, and being plus size, fashion's a minefield. But I haven't bought anything from them in quite a few years. And their ads, they just keep getting more intense and more targeted towards me specifically. They are tempting me with the hottest, witchiest, gothic hoe clothes I have ever seen in my entire life. It's evil. I love the way those clothes look. But when I look at them, I'm not just thinking about the clothes. I'm thinking about me and how I could feel if I was able to dress like that. How would it feel if I could express myself this way? If I could signal to everyone how big and bad and, awesomely powerful of a witch that I am. But I know that the clothes are cheap. They might not fit. They probably won't last me long. And that's just the way that buying them would affect me personally. There's also environmental and other human costs. It would go against some of my values. But when I see ad after ad after ad selling me on this version of myself that looks sexy and strong, it plays on my insecurities. I feel very real feelings about myself, even though I'm just looking at some cheap trash. And it would be foolish of me to think that I'm never influenced the same way when it comes to spirituality. So just keep this in mind. You got to check in with yourself. In some of my recent tarot readings, I keep getting this message that I need to check in with my chakras. First, it was the root chakra. It came up a couple of times, and it made sense. I've been feeling disconnected. Like there is nothing solid beneath me. I'm not connected to my instincts. Okay, I've got a problem. Now we have a solution. I pulled out a book that can help me. It's Crystal Healing and Sacred Pleasure by Vanessa Cuccia. And in the chapter for each individual chakra, because you get a chapter per chakra, she gives you this great little explanation of what you might experience if this energy center is either too active or underactive. It's very clear. She has actionable advice to deal with it. And because she's the creator of Shock Rubs, all of the advice has like a really cool, sexy pleasure component, which is very fun. Out of curiosity, I looked through all the other chapters, like let's look at the other chakras, right? I'm looking at this specific little piece. And that was tough because everything that I've been feeling was laid right out there in black and white. A blocked crown chakra can leave you feeling lost and disconnected, like with the root, but from the other direction, from spirituality. It can also make you overfixate on material things. For example, caring more about the look and decor on your altar rather than actually using the space to connect with the divine. That was her actual example, and I laughed, but it's not a nice laugh, it's a sad laugh, because that describes me for sure. And going down the list, a third eye that's not balanced can leave you without vision or imagination of your own, so you rely on others to solve problems. With the throat, you struggle to express yourself authentically and to know if someone else is doing the same. The heart is your emotions, and if you're cut off from your emotions, that's something is self-explanatory. But you can also be in overdrive, which is overstimulating, and it's scary. It causes anxiety. This is when you react deeply to even shallow experiences. The solar plexus is the seat of your confidence and your self-esteem, your self-worth. If it's not working right, you are more easily influenced to do things that don't align with your values. And a blocked sacral or pleasure chakra can cause you to seek out pleasure in the form of instant gratification rather than long-term satisfaction. And if one isn't working properly, it can disrupt the whole system. There's chakras above and chakras below, and the energy's got to move through. So this is a way that you can check in spiritually. It's a way that you can determine where any of these issues are actually affecting you and what kind of problems it might be causing in your life that you might not have noticed yet. Also, once you know how, and you get your chakras all, balanced and running well, you can keep the party line open so you know if something is starting to get with you, if it's causing a problem, exactly what it is. You can also visit someone who does energy healing, like a Reiki practitioner. Tell them your concerns and see how you feel about it after a session. This is just one way to look inward. There's plenty of others, including consulting the tarot deck and breaking out the journal. Try it out. Try out any of these ways to connect with yourself. Spend some time with yourself, fully alone. It's uncomfortable at first, but maybe with practice, it won't be. The winter solstice seems like a perfect time to reflect on this because it's when connection to others, to ourselves, to nature can be the most challenging. It's a little easier to connect with nature when it's inviting and warm, right? In the winter, it takes effort. And if you're inside more, it'll be a lot harder to find ways to work and worship and communicate and have fun without the internet. you really have to try. It has to be intentional. I have been writing and scrapbooking and collaging in a physical journal every day, and I'm ritualizing it. I'm not writing my to-do list in there. This is something special and specific. Every day I make this tiny little collage or piece of art in there. And it was super hard at first not to snap a picture and share it. And I'm lying, it's still hard. But I also notice a difference. I'm not creating something that anyone else is going to see. I'm creating something that is entirely my own. It speaks to me specifically. It doesn't need to speak to anyone else. It doesn't need to look good. It just needs to be, and that's enough. You might have noticed I'm also not posting about every book I'm reading. I'm not taking a picture of the cover the second I get it. I might recommend a book after I've read it if I really liked it, but I'm trying to make sure that I experience the book first, because that is the point of reading it. That's the point. The point is not to snap a cute pic. The point is to read the book, to learn something, and then to hopefully pass that on to you guys. On the day of the winter solstice, today, because I'm not recording this on the winter solstice, of course, I have decided that what I'm going to do is unplug for the day. I'm going to be turning off my cell phone, not opening up my laptop for the whole day. Maybe that doesn't sound like a big deal to you guys, but maybe it will when I say that this also includes streaming music. So I'm breaking out the record player, I guess. I'll be spending some time downstairs in my basement office, literally descending into the darkness and finding the light wherever I can. I might also bake, play with my cats, go for a walk. And I will certainly obsessively pick up my phone many times, expecting the screen to light up, only to remember why it isn't, and then have to find a way to soothe myself without ASMR videos on YouTube, like a damn Luddite. Can you tell that I'm excited and also horrified? Because I don't remember the last time I celebrated a witchy holy day without sharing it online or planning it out based on, cool things that other witches are posting. This day will be solely my own. It'll be self-determined. Any spiritual experiences I have will be organic and will exist entirely in this moment. And then they will transform. They will become nothing but memories. It's alchemy, So I am looking forward to it. And I also know I'm going to struggle with it a bit. I'm really attached to the phone. So the next time you all hear from me, it will be 2025. And my hope is that I will find some new ways to connect with nature, with myself, with the universe, and of course with all of you. Because like most things, the internet is not all bad or all good. It's just life. And life is filled with the possibility of both. I live a wonderful life online, and that's not going to stop. I'm just looking forward to all of the new things that I get to experience through this rite of passage and this journey toward striking a better balance between light and dark and real and not real. I'm so grateful that you're here with me so that we can stay connected and assure one another that we're not alone. So I hope you all have a beautiful, blessed winter solstice or Yule. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, wonderful New Year, and that you all stay warm and safe and happy. And I will talk to all of you again in 2025. If you want to learn more about me, the show, or any of my books, you can find it all at thefatfeministwitch.ca. I could not do this show at all without the support of my generous friends and followers on Patreon. And I don't just mean financial, I also mean emotional. So if you want to pitch in and get some extra content, some behind the scenes stuff, some newsletters, visit patreon.com/thefatfeministwitch. I also have merch. tote bag stickers, coffee cups, and of course, t-shirts. They go up to a size 5X on my TeePublic shop. Finally, you can track me down on Facebook, Instagram, or Threads, though as you might have guessed, I'll probably be posting just a little bit less in the coming weeks, but the links to all of these avenues of connection can be found in the description box for this episode.